Welcome in. It's another Moss Football Friday, and we're down a crew member again. We welcome back the 76-year-old week now. He's been 76-year-old. Tony James with me. Vegas Mac will be back, all three of us next week. TJ, how was the 76th birthday bash?
Dude, you know what's funny is we go to this birthday party that my beautiful bride puts together, and I'll be damned if there's not a group of people celebrating somebody's 80th birthday. So I wasn't even the oldest person in the building, but it's good. Yeah, right. But you know what? We made it through, and now we're ready to push to one of the best weeks on the college football calendar that we've seen in a long time.
It's incredible. I mean, when we saw the schedule come out at the beginning of the season, everybody was like, oh my God, I'm not doing anything that day. If you've got a wedding that day, I'm not going to be there. Like, one of the best things I saw, and I couldn't take credit for it, but it was exactly what my brain would have done. I wouldn't even go to my own wedding on that day. We are loaded top to friggin' bottom. We're not going to have enough time to get into all of them. We're going to get into some of them. But let's start at the top. You know, our Heisman video comes out every Thursday. You saw it yesterday. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm not. I think Ashton Genty's running away with this, but I also think because Ashton Genty plays at Boise State, and that's still a thing, and I'm not knocking Boise. I know you're not knocking them other than the fact that they're not a state, but the kid is putting up video game numbers every week. I'm going to throw this out at you. You and I, from a betting standpoint, appreciate this, and I don't know the book, but I saw it online before we started doing the show. Ashton Genty is minus 6,600 to score a touchdown against Hawaii on Saturday night. His over-under, 187.5 yards rushing at a minus 119. You're not making any money there, and that's how much he's taken from them. I think Travis Hunter will get himself in the mix, but Genty's literally running away with this thing, and I wonder how long it's going to take before people go, no, it's his.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. And I think I mentioned in the head of the class blog this week that Utah State can have some pride in holding Ashton Genty to 40 yards under his average. But I mean, yes, he is literally running away with it. Nobody is scoring with his proficiency. Nobody is carrying the ball with his proficiency. The guy is amazing, but he plays at Boise, so there's that bias, right? The group 5 bias, or the small school quote unquote bias, even though Boise's been there for years. So yes, he is. I don't think you're crazy. He is running away with it. It brings me back to thinking about guys like Marshall Faulk, like LaDainian Tomlinson, like Troy Davis, these guys who had incredible seasons, but really didn't sniff a shot. Troy Davis did, but didn't really sniff a shot at the big award. So this is going to be interesting to see if Genty's performances get him in the mentions with Cam Ward, with Jackson Dart.
Yeah, and the Travis Hunter thing, I think, is it's an interesting dynamic because he does it on both sides of the football. He's the Buffs' leading receiver. They didn't play last week. He moved up as far as the Vegas odds go by not playing. Cam Ward, fantastic. We've already talked about him a lot on the show channels this week, and it's going to be interesting to see. Speaking of who they're playing this weekend, they go to Hawaii, 8 o'clock start on the left coast on CBS Sports Network. And we're talking about guys from smaller schools that have had big years. One of the biggest names that comes to mind is a Colt Brennan to go along with the Falk and the Davis and the Tomlinson that we've talked about. When is it going to get to the point where, hey, is Travis Hunter really going to get in the mix? I mean, dynamic two-way player, fantastic. And again, he's the Buffs' leading receiver, and he's got 2 picks on defense and a bunch of pass breakups. It's just amazing to me to see this thing float out. If you have a chance this weekend and you have not watched him and you've only seen the highlights, do yourself a favor. It'll be the perfect nightcap right after Oregon beats Ohio State. We'll get to that in a minute. But it'll be the perfect nightcap to the end of the night to sit down and watch Boise State and Hawaii and watch Ashton Genty. English is easy for you. Watch him this weekend. That's all I'm saying. It's a great nightcap. It's a perfect time slot for this crazy day of college football that we're going to get into. The small school bias, whatever, and that's the amazing thing. And you mentioned it. We're still talking about it with Boise State, and the dude is just a human highlight reel.
Oh yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that he's not going to be around to see Boise move up or move laterally or move somewhere to a new conference. But yes, he is. Look, as a Nevada guy, I watch a lot of Mountain West football. I have complete Mountain West bias. I'm one of those guys who always is pulling for the smaller schools or pulling for the group of five because I think it's good football. And Ashton Genty is a great football player. There's nothing to be, you cannot deny that. The numbers do not deny that. And so, yeah, make sure you watch in the first half because they're probably going to blow out Hawaii and he's probably not going to play in the second half.
That's the other impressive thing. I'm glad you brought that up. That's the other impressive thing about his numbers is you look at a lot of those numbers and he didn't play the fourth quarter in a good handful of those games and everything else. So do yourselves a favor, America. Sit down and watch Ashton Genty and Boise State. It's the perfect nightcap, and you're going to be jacked from all the day of football. We're going to get into that a little bit more. One of the things you brought up a couple of weeks ago, TJ, and I saw a stat when we were talking in the pre-show meeting about this, Big Ten teams specifically, because we know the expansion of that conference from coast to coast. The Big Ten teams in conference play when they're traveling 2+ time zones or more are now 1-7. Indiana with the only win at UCLA. Not that that's a big win, but we also didn't think Indiana was going to be as good as clearly they are this year. You mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. That's the new dynamic of this, and we've got a great example of it a little bit later we'll get to in USC and Penn State. The travel dynamic is now a big part of this because we're in the height of conference play.
Well, yeah, and so I looked and was comparing the Big Ten with the ACC, and it doesn't nearly affect the ACC nearly as much because they only have the two teams across the country in Stanford and Cal, and most teams go to the Central or Eastern time zone, so it's not really as much of a factor. But look, you've got teams like USC going back and forth and back and forth. And look, I don't care if you're 20 years old and you're flying charter, that wears on you. And you may not see it in the first couple of weeks, but by that week 4 or week 5 of that schedule, that's when you're going to see it. And that's where these teams are going to have to adjust. And that's where the depth is going to have to play a part for these teams. I don't think it's any surprise that USC has so far in these 3 back-to-back across the nation, however you want to call it, they're 1-2. I don't think that's a surprise.
Yeah, we've got another example of it, and it's not quite to the extreme, but in the same conference. We've got Washington traveling to Iowa. I know it's not the same extreme, but it's Washington going to Iowa for a 9 a.m. kickoff on the West Coast, and you've got, again, the travel. You know, we saw them play a tough game against Michigan last week at home after the Apple Cup, and it's the back and forth thing. I'm very interested to see how Washington comes out in that game. I think that game's to be perfectly honest with you, I think that game's going to be butt ugly. I love Will Rogers, but that early kickoff time for Washington in Iowa, and Iowa's a tough place to play. Say what you want, make fun of the Hawkeyes' offense or lack thereof, and all that stuff. That's a tough place to play. You know, you've got another one, Wisconsin and Rutgers. That's a little more familiar because they've been there. And obviously the big one, as we mentioned, we'll get a little more into is Penn State and USC. Who the hell are these teams? We'll save that for a couple of minutes, but you know, it goes into the betting expectations. It's like you got to be real careful here, and we talk about this all the time because so many people are new to sports betting. You've got to be real careful with some of these spots and know your stuff. Here's a perfect example, and I know I was blowing up the group chat on the Thursday night football game from a week ago, not last night, a week ago when we had Tampa Bay and Atlanta, and I ended up going 0-3 on the show picks that night. But you know what? I stayed within my means. We had a good shot to get all 3 of them, and one play switched it. That was the most fun losing a bet I've ever had, and that's the thing I think we need to make sure people remember.
Well, yeah, 100%. I think the first thing you said was the most important, that you got to stay within your means. Don't go chasing. Once you start chasing, you're done. So don't go chasing. Have your set amount. If you lose, you have to expect to lose when you go into this into gambling. You have to expect to lose. If you win or you push, hey, that's a great weekend, right? But yeah, and you're right. It was super close. You were really close to going 3 for 3, which would have been awesome.
I went through the emotional roller coaster there, and it was like as soon as the play broke for the Bucs, I was like, well, shit, I just lost. But that was fun. Like, it was way fun losing. That's where it stays fun. And, we do dollar dingers, 5 for 500. Another perfect example last week. You and I both kind of rolled our eyes up on Mac's pick of Lamar Jackson to get for 300 yards. Jackson does it. Nico Collins, a 100-yard receiver, had 78 yards on his first 2 catches and then hurts his hamstring. Come to find out now he's on injured reserve, so he's going to miss the next 4. You had Josh Jacobs, 73 yards. We were right there. $5 for the play on that for, I think it was $270 last week. That's why we put those things out. Hey, here's a little bit. You get a lot of lines in the water. Have some fun. We are going to hit that damn thing this week, but that's those things. You got to find the systems that work for you. I mean, you and I, hell, we could tell some stories on this show that only people and
only people in the Orleans would know.
Only people in the Gators on the doors in the Orleans would know exactly.
But and those picks, I think we've talked about this before, and this is something important too. The first couple of weeks when you're betting, especially when you're betting the pros, is a complete crapshoot. Most of these teams now, they don't suit anybody up in the preseason, and so you get into game 1, and it's basically preseason game number 4 or 5 that the starters haven't played any, so they have to. Practice reps are nice, but game reps are better. And so they need to get those game reps going. But by the time you get to about week 4, you start to get the feel for every team. And so we're looking at our picks last week. And yeah, I kind of like sneered at the Lamar Jackson pick, but Mac knows what he's talking about. I went with Jacobs because Jacobs' history up to then, it looked like he was going to break 100. Rams were not very good against the run. Yeah, we took it in the shorts, and then there's nothing you can do about injuries, right? But yeah, I think you're right. I think once we get into week 6, week 7, you have a good read on teams. You know who's good. You know who's bad for the most part. You know teams' tendencies. Like, for example, you know what Michigan's going to do on offense. Then you can make the intelligent picks, and then you can start padding that wallet.
Michigan's going to make me put my face through glass on offense. That's what they're going to do. We've got some Friday night football. We'll get to that. Those of you wondering why Mac isn't here, I mean, he had a 9-1 pick on Lamar Jackson to throw for 300 yards, so we gave him the damn night off. If you believe that story, I've got oceanfront property in the middle of Phoenix, Arizona to sell you. Friday night football is here. We got a couple of good ones. I don't necessarily love the first one, UNLV and Utah State. I think it's going to be interesting. I think UNLV will win. We've talked about UNLV ad nauseum the last couple of weeks because of the NAL situation. The other game, before we set them up, let's set the table here. Utah, number 16, at Arizona State, right down the road from me. That's going to be an interesting one. Utah, 4.5-point favorites, the over-under at 45. UNLV, Utah State, that's in your wheelhouse. That's right up your alley. I know what you're waiting for on that one, to battle for the cannon again. What do you make of this game for those people that want to get a little movement on a Friday night that maybe haven't seen Utah State play football?
Well, let me make it really short and easy here. Utah State is bad. They're bad. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They're 1-4. They're pretty dreadful. But if you're looking for any optimistic numbers, they're 3-2 on the total this year. So that's a good sign. On this game, the total is 65.5, though. I think UNLV is going to have to get 50 of those. Haj Malik Williams has looked great, though. I mean, Matt Who? This guy just took QB1 and started running with it. They had a tough go last week against Syracuse, losing that heartbreaker, but this team is legit. Odom's doing a great job for the Rebels, and that hurts to say, but we have to be fair, and we have to give props when they're deserved. And that team's playing great right now. I expect them to go into Logan and win. 18.5 is kind of a sticky number for me right now. I'd like to see it more about 17. But I think UNLV wins this game.
Yeah, Friday night games are always interesting. I can speak from personal experience, like Jonathan Smith last week, kicking a completely useless and meaningless field goal at Autzen Stadium, which may or may not have affected anything, if you can tell by my face. But Friday night games are the weird ones, and we've got a couple tonight. I mean, we've got them every week, but we're getting into that part of the Friday night schedule where we've got some really good ones. And I think the one right down the road for me, very interesting, Utah on the road, Friday night, Arizona State, that's got a little renewed chutzpah, if you will, or whatever you want to say. There's a good buzz around this team and what Kenny Dillingham's been able to do. Utah, Yeah, it depends on the week with Utah, and a lot of that goes back to one guy. It's Cam Rising, and Kyle Whittingham is a fantastic person at never telling you what his status is until literally you see the first play of the game. So I'm leery there. I like the Devils at home, but this is a step up, big time environment. You've got a big time national audience on ESPN. I'm going to be interested to see how they come out.
Well, yeah, I think this is a great spot for Arizona State, especially if Cam Rising doesn't play. And can we just can I'm sure the Utes fans will get up behind this, but can we like arrest Cam Rising for grand theft NIL here, because this guy is pocketing cash like it's a bodily function and he is riding pine. I mean, come on. Give me a break here. But seriously, this is a really good spot for ASU. I love what they're doing here. And Utah's a lot's been made about how great Utah is. In the last 10, Utah is 6-4. So
right.
It's not like they're the Alabama of the Big 12 right now. They're just as average as anybody else. Now, when they're on, they can put up points like nobody's business. But I really like Arizona State here as a home dog. I would jump on that in a second.
Yeah, and Sam Levitt's played really good for the Devils. He's 79 of 134 for 1,012 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But he's leading that team. If you want to look at it from a more analytical standpoint, obviously we know about Cam Scadaboo and the job he's done for the Devils. It just I really am interested to see what the energy level there is. And Arizona's kind of a weird sports town when it comes to this. When they're winning, everybody's high. Obviously, the Cardinals get a massive win last week. ASU and Utah. This is the thing I don't think people are paying attention to. ASU and Utah, both 4-1. They're both 1-1 in the Big 12. This is a big time game that the Devils get at home, which, that hasn't happened for them in this position in a while. Do I think ASU is going to win the Big 12? No, I don't. But I do like the spot here, and I do lean with you a little bit on the home dog Friday night under the lights. And you look at the rest of the Devils' schedule after here, at Cincinnati, at Oklahoma State, home for a UCF team that just got blasted by Florida. So that tells you what there is. And we talk about going cross country. That's Orlando all the way to Tempe. That's going to be an interesting one. And then Kansas State, BYU, and of course Arizona. And they're in a good position here to have a good finish in the Big 12.
I think so too. And like I said, I've loved what the coach has done in the last couple of years. But this next week for ASU is going to probably define where they go, whether they go and make a run at this Big 12 thing, or whether they're just going to finish middle of the pack. Because it is a tough go. It is Utah. It is at Cincinnati, one of those wicked 9 a.m. starts. They do get a week off before they play Oklahoma State. But these two games, I think, will tell us a lot about where the Sun Devil team is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we flip to Saturday. We're going to start where game day starts in the morning. What a scene last weekend in Cal. What an incredible game. The Cal students camping out at the Memorial Glade from 11:30 the night before. Absolute energy. Where does game day go this week? They go back to the West Coast for the biggest game, the game a lot of us have been waiting for since the schedule came out. The Ohio State Buckeyes make their second trip outside of Columbus, and they head to Eugene to take on the Ducks. This is an interesting one, TJ, because we've talked about it. I think, obviously, the attention, Jeremiah Smith for the Buckeyes, fantastic. We know what Dylan Gabriel's done for the Ducks. But I think the one area that nobody is really paying a lot of attention to, these are two very damn good defenses. Say what you want about who they've played. And to me, Oregon's played the tougher schedule. These are two very good defenses. And that's what I think the tail and the underlying, great part of this game is.
Yeah, and I don't want to give the whole house away right now because somebody may have something to say about it later.
It's a TJ After Dark on Saturday night.
You know this. But I think Ohio State is the best defense in the league right now. And I don't think it's a surprise how well they've played. I think this is going to be a huge game for Oregon because Oregon needs to prove that they belong here. They need to prove that all this crap talking that they did in the preseason and all the duck inflatables and all the trips to try and get in, break into stadiums. This is the game. This is the game. And they need to either crap or get off the pot in this game. I think it's going to be fun to watch because I think Gabriel may have a good game against Ohio State, but I don't want to give everything away.
TJ After Dark will have that one on our social channels. I don't have to make a pick on this game on Saturday, so I'm going to do it right here. Listen, I talked about this. I posted it on our page, the new face of college football. I think Dan Lanning is exactly that guy. I honestly believe, and nobody will admit this, obviously. How many times do we say obviously? Let's get a counter up there. I believe that Oregon has been setting up the whole first 5 games for this exact game. This has been the one they circled. Why wouldn't it be? If you're going to give me the Ducks at home as an underdog and Ohio State playing in an environment, and you can say they play in the Big Ten, they play at Michigan, you're not wrong. This is a whole different environment, Autzen. It gets insanely loud. It gets insanely crazy. And something that you said in head of the class this week about the 13 hours of pre-gaming with the Cal fans last week and the environment that created. Now, this game starts a little bit earlier than the Cal-Miami game did. I think you're going to see some scenes on Saturday night from Eugene that are mind-blowing, and I can't wait to see it. And I'll be up, just like my crazy ass is, every Saturday morning about 30 minutes before game day's on. It's the best damn show running, and it's going to be a friggin' incredible scene. These are the games that made us excited about the crazy realignment, is seeing these, and I can't wait. I've been waiting for this one since the summer. I got the Ducks. I got the Ducks at plus money on the money line. I don't know if I'm going to touch the total here because again, we talked about the defenses. I'm not going to make you make your pick because that's what After Dark is for. Let's roll forward, shall we? Ole Miss and LSU. That's another interesting game. Another good defense that is extremely underrated. The Ole Miss defense. Cite source on schedule all you want. Ole Miss looking to kind of stay within the conversation, if you will. Jackson Dart looking to jump himself back into the top side of the Heisman race. I think this one's going to be very interesting. I don't trust LSU. Brian Kelly and his fake ass accent and all that stuff. Right now, the line hovering around Ole Miss minus 362 is the over under here. I tend to lean to the overside of that, but I think this is going to be another good one that might not get as many eyeballs because, hey, kickoff time, it's the same damn time.
Yeah, you got. I'll give you some numbers here. LSU's had a great season. They're 4-1, but they've only covered the spread once. And so, from a better standpoint, I look at that and go, I'm jumping on Mississippi. The books think that these teams are relatively even with LSU playing at home. Ole Miss is favored by 3. I think that Mississippi has had kind of a crappy 2 weeks. They lost that game to Kentucky. They played against South Carolina, and they didn't look terribly good. The defense looked good, but the offense is so that total at 62.5 is a little surprising for me. I could see it happen because LSU at home at night on Saturdays sometimes puts up those crooked numbers. But as far as just looking at the spread right now, I would go with Mississippi covering the 3.
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect matchup to kind of give props to the new format of college football, the expanded college football playoff. You got a 5-1 Ole Miss team, a 4-1 LSU team. You've got 2 teams that typically would have had to win out at this point. I'm not saying they can lose a whole lot more games, but there's still hope here, and there's still a fight for both of these teams to position themselves right to get into that expanded playoff. Obviously, the SEC is pretty stacked up like it usually is, especially this year at the top. But this is a classic game of, hey, you know what? Yeah, Ole Miss, they look like crap. They got a chance to come back. They go into Death Valley and get a win under the lights. That's a big-time game. And this is the good part of the realignment of the new version of college football. I mean, for me, it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is, like you said, with Ohio State and Oregon and LSU, these are the games that we look forward to, not those Cal, Syracuse matchups that we're going to get eventually. But this is what we want, right? In fact, give me 10 of these if you can. I think it's going to be a good game. I love how stacked the SEC is. Although I'm a Mountain West guy at heart, I love watching SEC football because that's like the big boys, right? And they're always just sticking it right in your face and try and stop us type of teams. And I really like that when I'm watching football. Yeah, this is gonna be great. My finger's gonna hurt from hitting the next button on this between this game and the Oregon game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the SEC, and we've all waited for this Saturday, for tomorrow, for a long time. But you've got the first ever Red River rivalry, SEC version. And then if we bounce forward, not to get too far ahead, but next week we have Tennessee and Bama, and we've got Georgia and Texas too. So we just keep going. Let's stay in the SEC here. Not going to talk about two good teams. We're talking about one team that needs a bounce back, one team that got a great win. But I don't know if the Florida Gators are going to win another game, and they're going to get a Tennessee team in a very bad spot for Florida. You've got Tennessee favored by 15.5 at home over the Gators. 55.5 is the over-under. You talked about it in your head of the class. The top performers, Arkansas, shut down Tennessee. Defensively, they absolutely shut them down. I think you're going to get a very pissed off Tennessee team. And I don't know if the Gators are going to win another game for the rest of the year until they get to the end when they play Florida State. If you look at their schedule, I'm expecting to see an angry Tennessee team. What do you think?
I too expect to see an angry Tennessee game, but our Tennessee team. But this is an interesting matchup for Tennessee with the schedule because you know who they get next week, and so that knowing that Alabama is in their sights, this is a perfect opportunity for a trap game. That 15.5 is a big number considering who they have coming up next. Even though, yes, they should come out and demolish Florida. No offense, but this should not be close. I expect that offense to just be on all cylinders. They have a lot to make up for last week. But 15.5 and looking ahead, that kind of gets teams in trouble. So
it does, but I think the thing with this Florida team that's the most mind-blowing for somebody that's watched more than a healthy amount of Florida football in my lifetime. This Florida defense looks nothing like a Florida defense from the past. You don't have, the Brandon Spikes guys, and I get it. You're not going to get those guys every year, but you don't have it in the front. You don't have it in the middle. You definitely don't have it on the backside. I still think we're dealing with the curse of the shoe, if you ask me, but that's going to get us down a whole nother rabbit hole. This Gators team can't play defense, and that's what scares me in this game. Yes, Tennessee, I agree with you. It's a classic look-ahead spot. I don't think the Florida defense can stop them enough. And I think getting smacked like they did to Arkansas last week was the perfect timing for them not to look ahead. If they would have went into Arkansas and blasted the Razorbacks and then had this game, I'd feel more like it. But I'm comfortably laying the 15.5 and taking the Vols in this one because I don't think it's going to be close.
I expect your boy Iamaleava to come back and just be bananas this weekend. My fear for the 15.5 though, and this is a fear that, and you and I both have stories about this that we could tell for days, is getting out to a big lead, reserves come in, Florida puts in Lagway, and then all of a sudden you get 2 backdoor touchdowns and you win by 15. That's my biggest fear in this game. Yeah, and I know it's crazy talk, but
no, it's not crazy talk though. I mean, we talk about different methods and betting styles. Like that is something that you definitely have to factor in on a lot of these. I see this game as like a 50 to 24 kind of finish. Like that's how out of hand I think this thing gets.
I think a good play on this game, Mike, is going to would be the first half. I think you just hammer the first half on Tennessee. I think you really do. I think that would come through. I think that's going to come through like a champion.
That's a good call there, and that's another thing. Another betting style like first half. We talked about live bettings, like targeting totals after it starts. You kind of hunt the live line and stuff like that. So definitely something to look at here. I'm not going to make a pick on your favorite game this week because I've got it on Saturday morning on our channels. But Penn State, number 4 Penn State, goes Hollywood to USC and Miller Moss and the only second half Trojans. Penn State -5, 50.5 is the number. You called this your favorite game. Why?
I call this my favorite game because James Franklin is terrible in big games, straight up terrible. And there's like there. Here's the thing, Mike. Penn State is a good football team. They are good. They're good. But how can a team, you change the personnel on the team and the results are the same consistently in big games? It's not the players now. Now it's on the coaches. Because if you're going to roll up a 3-17 record against top 10 teams, I know USC isn't ranked in the top 10 right now, but USC is a good football team. But if you're going to roll up 3-17 against top 10s and 12-25 against top 25 teams, you can't tell me with a straight face that this guy's a decent coach. You just can't. And so I'm looking at this game from two sides. Number one, this is an opportunity for Penn State to show that they belong at number 4 with a statement performance against USC, who's had they've had a tough 3 weeks. Lost to Michigan, beat Wisconsin, lost to Minnesota. It's been kind of a rough go from USC standards. Penn State has a chance to show that they belong. They should beat USC fairly handily. However, USC needs to show that that going into the Big Ten was not a poor decision. Miller Moss, I think, is going to have a great game in this game. He looked really good against Wisconsin. He looked pretty good against Michigan in the second half. So I'm expecting Miller Moss to have a big game. As far as this game goes from the line, Penn State's favored by 5.5. I'm going to take the home dog in this case. If Penn State wins, I think it's by 4 or less.
Yeah, I'm not going to, again, I won't get too far into it. Save some for Saturday on the video. But here's the thing that baffles me. These are two coaches I do not trust. Either one of these guys. I do not trust them. And a couple of weeks ago, I talked about Penn State. I had Penn State, I think it was against Illinois. And it was one of my weekend videos. And Drew Aller had progressed to the point where they were starting to utilize the deep ball. It's never going to be a Penn State thing. That's not what they're going to do. But the fact that you had to think about it with Aller, and when you've got Singleton and Allen, and I mean, the two of them at almost 800 yards and 7.7 for Singleton, 5 yards a carry for Allen. I get it. I get that's what it does. But I'm interested to see, going along the same lines of you there, now that we have these teams like USC and we have Oregon and we have Washington and these new teams into the conference that are going to force you to play a little bit different style of football, I just don't see Penn State ever changing. And I swear to effing God, I said it to you guys in the group text last week. I am never, ever, ever betting on a James Franklin team again. I'm tired of it. I can't do it. And here's the best thing. I don't have to bet in this game because I can't stand either one of these guys and I don't trust either one of them. And that's going to be the fun part about it. My favorite game of the week, Arizona and BYU. It's a middle of the day kickoff from BYU, the 14th ranked Cougars. BYU -4, 48.5 is the number. This is an extremely interesting matchup to me. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Cougars because they don't really do anything that overly wows you. Jake Retzlaff, 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's also their leading rusher at 156 yards. The thing that I don't think people really pay attention to with BYU, they're scoring 33 points a game. They're only giving up 15, slightly under 16 at 15.8. Then you get Arizona that comes in. You've got Fafita and Conley and T-Mac in there. That's a dynamic offense against a really good defense in a very difficult place to play. I would have rather seen this game as a nighttime kickoff. Didn't get it. But I like this spot for BYU because I don't think people realize how good they are because they can muck it up and then they don't let you score.
Well, yeah, the BYU, when I watched that game against K-State, and that was so impressive. Like, I thought K-State was a decent, I think they were ranked 13th coming in, and BYU just blew them right off the field. Like, it wasn't even close. They did everything right. Interesting that BYU is 5-5 in their last 10 going back to last season, but those 5 losses were all last season. They're 5-0 this year. They're 5-0 against the spread this year. Arizona, they showed me something against Utah, but I think this is a great spot for BYU. I can make a pick on this. I'm taking the Cougars.
Absolutely. Make a pick on any damn thing you want to. So obviously there's more games. We're going to cover as many of them as we can on the weekend. Obviously follow us on Twitter. I'm still on the IL from last weekend's Twitter usage. Our staffers, everybody was all over it. We've got to move to the NFL now. Monday Night Football, we saw the Chiefs and the Saints, and a game that really wasn't honestly as close as the score was. Kansas City's offense, that's why they're at the top of the power pyramid again. I mean, they're 5-0, but Monday night was, you saw 4 tight ends. You saw the Dino Chicken Nuggets play that I'm sure was designed on a Happy Meal box for Andy Reid, especially when he's got that sinister smile. Hey, Andy, was that a called play? Well, we work on it in practice. I can't tell you what it's called. That was scary. You saw 4 tight ends. You saw plug and play, and this is what Kansas City does. And they just keep setting the bar and setting the bar and setting the bar. So it makes me wonder, who the hell keeps pace with Kansas City? I know the easy answer is going to be Baltimore in the AFC, but is it?
I don't think so. I think they have separated, once again, painful to say. I think they've separated themselves from everybody else. Everybody else right now is fighting for second. Baltimore, Buffalo, you can give me whoever you want. They're all fighting for second. And it's phenomenal how they've kind of taken the Patriots style or how should I say it? What they do with personnel and applied it to their team. You're like, oh, Xavier Worthy's out. Let's go get Juju Smith-Schuster, who we had a couple times, and let's try him out. Let's throw him the ball a few times. Or Isaiah Pacheco's out. Go get Kareem Hunt back, and we'll put him back in. They're not afraid to let people go, and they're not afraid to bring people in who they know can work in the system. It's been fun to watch. I'm kind of surprised that the offense has not been as prolific from a point standard, but what they're doing is very impressive.
Yeah, and this is the thing. We've been like, Kansas City, I mean, they're good. Obviously, you got Mahomes. Anytime you got Mahomes, you're going to be really good. Kelsey's, starting to heat up a little bit. All the injuries, they're a plus 33 point differential for the year. I mean, it's what they do. Like, Spagnuolo doesn't get the credit for the defenses that he crafts. And again, I mean, the score was not indicative for the people that didn't watch the game Monday. Obviously, the baseball playoffs are going on. Been fantastic. Some storylines there. Touch on that a little bit later. But the game was not as close as it was. Now Kansas City with a week off, they get to sit and wait. They get to rest before the rematch with San Francisco. Has obviously got some extended time off now as well. We've also got a developing situation this weekend. Spencer Rattler, Drake May, and Aiden O'Connell will be starting for their respective teams. The Saints, after Monday night's game, speaking of the Saints, they decide to bypass Jake Haener with Derek Carr injured, and they go to Spencer Rattler, who's going to make his first start. Really interesting call there, especially in a division game against Tampa Bay. We got a bunch of quarterbacks in a bunch of spots that look real juicy to bet against. We'll get to a couple of those in a little bit. What do you think? I mean, you're a Raider fan. Not Favre.
Yeah, exactly. Play like Favre, look like Favre. I could go and give a dissertation on the Raiders' quarterback troubles the last several years. And my opinion, this is the result of them going cheap at the position and not going after Justin Fields. But yes, I find it very interesting, especially that the Saints are going Spencer Rattler over Jake Haener. I would think they would have gone with Haener. I mean, you throw a backup into a game, and it's like you kind of don't know what you're going to get. He might throw for 4 touchdowns in the second half and lead your team to victory and look great, and then go and get his start the next week and just crap the bed. Or it might be the reverse. You never know. But that's a tough position. But obviously, Dennis Allen thinks that Spencer Rattler is going to give them the best opportunity to win. Of course, we've seen this before with Dennis Allen and what happened. So, there's that.
And it's a huge position for the Saints. I mean, we're going to go ahead and assume that Atlanta is going to wipe the field with Carolina. So Atlanta will go 4-2. And a win for the Saints makes them 3-3 with Tampa at 3-3. I don't think they're going to beat Tampa, but this is a massive spot for New Orleans, and they're going to give Rattler a chance. I mean, he could be a hero. this weekend. That's a big game early in the season in an NFC South that has turned out to be a lot better than I think people realized.
100% it's better. I mean, say what you want about the Panthers, but the Falcons have been a pleasant surprise. Although I know someone, I have a friend of a friend who said that Atlanta would make the playoffs this year. But Atlanta, the Saints, I've been big on the Saints this year because I love their moves. I think it's disappointing that Carr is injured, but the Saints are a good team. And then Tampa Bay, who would have thought when they signed Baker Mayfield that Baker Mayfield would have turned into the best replacement for Tom Brady that they could get? I didn't think so.
No, I don't think any of us did. No,
but he's done the job, right? He's been a
right.
great addition to that team. And that team, the Buccaneers, in my opinion, have the best receivers of any of those teams. I mean, you could say maybe make an argument for the Falcons, but I think the Bucs have the best receiving core of any of those teams.
Yeah, and the thing that scares me with the Bucs, and obviously, I mean, we've got personal friends that are Bucs fans, and you can beat it over the head as many times as you want to. This is the thing that still jumps out to me. Last week in that overtime game, the thrilling loss for me on Thursday Night Football. But, everybody's like, hey, Rachaad White had a good game. He didn't. He had 10 carries for 72 yards. 56 of those came on one carry. So let's do some general math here. 9 carries for 16 yards. I think Bucky Irving is the guy. I think if Tampa wants to go forward, Bucky Irving needs to be the guy. Bucky Irving also had the fumble that basically, screwed up the perfect night there. But if Tampa doesn't get that running game going, a team that I have high expectations for, I still have them. I have them 5th on the power pyramid this week. I flip-flopped them and Houston, another team that could run at Kansas City, but staying on the Bucs here, that's a good football team. But if they don't get that running game going, they're one-dimensional, and that puts everything on Baker's shoulders and those great receivers that you talked about.
Well, and it all of a sudden makes you not a great football team because when everybody knows what's coming, they can prepare for that, and then you're sunk, right? This is the NFL. This is where they're pros, right? We can make, like I said, we can make fun of the Carolina Panthers all we want, but they are pros, and if you make Tampa Bay one-dimensional, the Carolina Panthers will beat you. So yes, it is imperative that running game gets going. Imperative for them to compete for a playoff spot.
Yeah, and here's the thing: getting the running game going is not going to be easy for the Bucs because after New Orleans, it's Baltimore, it's Atlanta, again, it's Kansas City on the road, and San Francisco before they hit their bye week. After their bye week, here come the New York Giants, Carolina, the Raiders, the Chargers, Cowboys, Carolina, New Orleans, and they've got a stretch here, and that's why this game is a have to have. Because they're going to get Baltimore next on Monday Night Football on the 21st. So Tampa's an interesting team to watch. No big changes in the power pyramid before we go hop across the pond for a game I know you can't wait to talk about. The biggest movers for me, I have Atlanta 8th. I dropped Seattle down to 9th, Dallas 10th. Gritty win for the Cowboys. We'll get to the Cowboys here in a little bit. But nothing real groundbreaking there because there wasn't a whole lot of movement. And the reason that we didn't put this list out at the beginning of the year, we were talking about at the beginning of the show. What do you really know in week 1, 2, or 3? I mean, how stupid is it to power rank somebody in July off a roster sheet? You know nothing.
No, you're absolutely right. You know nothing. You could have put Atlanta at the top and nobody could say anything. But yeah, this is I thought this power pyramid was pretty fair. I thought you've set it up really well. A couple of interesting things.
Whole committee involved in that.
I know. A couple of interesting things was Dallas higher than Baltimore for me, and Seattle. I was kind of expecting them to fall a little bit more after their game the last week, but other than that, I think you did a great job.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Well, I mean, we talked about it pre-show. I mean, who are the Cowboys and who are the Ravens? I mean, the Ravens lost a tough game opening week in Kansas City that they almost pulled out, likely by a toe. They could have won that game. And then they get blasted by the Raiders at home. And they go into Dallas and they beat Dallas. Well, who really is Dallas? Then they struggled to have to come from behind. Fantastic game with the Bengals. I mean, absolutely amazing game. I don't know who they are, and I don't know who the hell Dallas is. Dallas gets the gritty, tough road win last week in Pittsburgh. We're going to find out a lot about Dallas this week. But I don't see a differentiating factor between. I don't think Seattle is what we've seen the last 2 weeks. I
No.
don't know who Dallas is. Not really sure who Baltimore is. I know what Pittsburgh is, and I've made my point perfectly clear on them. Atlanta, don't know. Washington is another team that we're going to get a chance to see who they really are once we get to our 6-pack. But let's go across the pond here. You want to?
Oh, nothing would thrill me more to go talk about this game.
TJ's been waiting for this one all week. We've got the 1-4 Jaguars across the pond for the second London game against the 3-2 Chicago Bears. This one's got a number that's hovering around -2 for the Bears. And 44.5 is the over-under. I hate overs in these London games.
Yeah.
This is interesting, TJ, because you talk about a team, we don't know what the hell they are. Enter the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have to look at the Jaguars. I mean, look at Waffle House Jesus, who lost 10 starts in a row. Before winning last week. And I'm convinced, Mike, the only reason they won is because they played the Colts, and the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014. So, there's that. But this Jaguars team, which was the trendy pick, right? I thought that they were the AFC's trendy pick to go far, has proven to be nothing. I think their last 8 games last year are what they are after watching the first 5 games this year. And if that puts Peterson on the hot seat, then it does. This team needs to get their crap together, and it starts with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at it going into this game, some things to watch from a betting angle before butt crack of dawn Sunday morning when this thing kicks off, especially for us left coasters here. Travis Etienne, questionable. Devin Duvernay, obviously on IR now. Evan Ingram is questionable. Gabe Davis, another free agent signed that was expected to produce, he's questionable. Tank Bigsby is the leading rusher for the Jags. So one positive thing I will say from what I've seen out of Jacksonville, Brian Thomas Jr. has been a hell of a lot of fun to watch. 22 grabs, 397, and 3 tutties already. But that's not the team that you want to talk about, my friend.
Nope.
Let's talk about your Bears.
I wore this hat for a reason tonight because I knew we were going to talk about Mr. Williams, who is my favorite player to hate right now. But I have to give him credit, Mike. He's played pretty good the last couple of weeks. And look, you can say what you want. You can talk about his dress. You can talk about what he does in the offseason. You can talk about his attitude coming out of USC and into the draft. You can talk about him never being able to beat the University of Utah. I know wrong colors, but still the same state. But look, he's 3-2. And the last couple of weeks, we've seen significant improvement in his play. And I think if you're the Bears, that's all you can ask to do is you can ask him to improve and not lose football games. And so far, he's done that. Now, this matchup against the Jaguars is interesting because it's across the pond. And by the way, do you think the people in London really love the NFL so much that they're getting the Jaguars this week? They got the Jets last week, and now you get the Jaguars. I mean, come on. But
you could be Germany that got screwed by the NFL, and they got Panthers and Giants later.
Oh, good grief. But this is an interesting game because number one, it is a 9:30 Eastern start, but it's the only game on. So anybody who's up is going to be watching it. It is one of those showcase games because it's in London. And the Jaguars defense has actually been decent. You mentioned all the people who are injured or out or whatever. That's a lot of offensive players. So I'm looking forward to see how. Now I'm not going to lie to you. I can't guarantee I'm going to be up at 6:30, maybe 7. But I'm interested to see how Caleb does.
I have issues. I will be.
I'm interested to see how Caleb does in a highlighted game with a lot of travel, a different circumstance. It's not like the game time circumstance if you're playing, say, the Rams. It's totally different because there's a lot of pomp and circumstance with this. This is going to be interesting to see. If the Bears win this game, then Caleb will continue to kind of get in my head as from the other side, like maybe this guy isn't so bad at all.
The concerning thing I have when it comes to the Bears is you go up and down their rushing totals at this point in the season. DeAndre Swift, 234 yards, averaging 3.2 yards a carry. Some of that is the line play for the Bears, but a lot of it is just he doesn't look like advertised from what they brought him in for. Caleb Williams is actually at 5.4 yards a carry. He's only ran it 21 times. But I made the comment a couple of weeks ago, and I think you're starting to see him do it a little bit more. And I think this is where that success part comes in. First couple of weeks, maybe it's a rookie quarterback thing. He was holding on to the ball for a long time, and I'm like, good God, if he doesn't start getting rid of this ball, he's going to get killed. This is a great spot, like you said, for the Bears. And when you look at their schedule after this, obviously the bye after the London game, then they're at Washington. And we get Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Then they come out here to Arizona. Then they've got New England. They've got some usable and some winnable games here in that NFC North. Very competitive division. We've got a good one coming up in a couple weeks in that division. So I can't wait to see, and this will lead us right into our next game when we get to the rest of the Sunday slate here. But Williams at Washington against Jaden Daniels, that's going to be a great one. I hate these international games. We can complain and bitch about them all we want. They're not going anywhere. There's going to be more of them added as we go forward, but is what it is. I mean, if Jacksonville wants to keep playing over there, it's no sweat off of my back. Let's go into the rest of Sunday, though. Speaking of Jaden Daniels and my Washington Commanders.
Your Commanders.
My Kansas City Royals. This game there's a lot of interesting storylines this game. The Beltway battle, you've got Washington at Baltimore Ravens, another team we're trying to figure out who they are. Washington is in the top of what the hell NFC East. This game was cock-blocked by CBS. NBC wanted to flex it. CBS said, go get bent. And I don't blame them. I mean, it's a great battle. Couple of freaking nearby neighbors. -6.5 for the Ravens, and numbers hovering around 51.5. The reason that I was so big on the Commanders in our training camp tour is because I like the veteran leadership around Jaden Daniels. You've got Bobby Wagner on the other side of the ball, Fowler on the defensive side. You've got Scary Terry, Brian Robinson has been through hell and back, and that coaching staff, the guys around Jaden Daniels, and giving credit where it's due, Cliff Screensbury, man, when he finally pulled the lid off that offense, and now we've seen what Washington can do. I am fascinated by this game. And it's not because I'm on that Commanders bandwagon from my preseason pick. I think this is going to be a good football game. It's a chance for Jaden Daniels to step up.
This is a spotlight game for Jaden Daniels for sure. This is up to now. It's probably the biggest test. I've been very impressed with how Daniels has played. He's been composed. He's made throws that are incredible for a rookie quarterback. I honestly don't blame CBS for wanting this game, but at the same time, this would have been an awesome Sunday night game to watch. Interesting on the Ravens side, though, Lamar's coming off a great game last week. That 6.5, though, I don't know about that. That's a little high for me. What about you?
Figuring out my own mute button there. I like the spot here for Washington. I think there's a lot of momentum there. I think, now again, I talked about it in the training camp tour. Like this is the first full year of the entire Josh Harris regime in Washington. I think you can see top to bottom the excitement. We're talking about the fans, front office, the players, everybody's vibing on this. And we know how teams catch lightning in a bottle. Maybe this is last year's Houston Texans team, and we just haven't realized it yet, or we need to see them do this. I heard somebody this week, let's pump the friggin' brakes on this. The last time there was a rookie quarterback to win NFL MVP was 1957. Or a rookie had won the NFL MVP, 1957, obviously Jim Brown. I'm not there yet. Pump the brakes, pull the e-brake. Let's just let the kid do his thing. But I see a lot of the Houston Texans in this Commanders team. I'm really leaning on the Commanders side. I'm gonna smoke the smoke and drink the Kool-Aid on this one. I'll take the Commanders plus 6.5. I'd like it better at 7.5, but
yeah, I agree. I don't think that's a bad play at all. On Sunday, I would bet the 6.5. I want to see how Jaden Daniels does against this defense. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Baltimore needs to. We talked about how Kansas City was separating themselves from the rest of the AFC. Baltimore needs to show that they're right up there on that level, and this would be a huge opportunity for them.
Yeah, Baltimore. Are you the team that struggled with the Cowboys? Or are you the team that beat the living crap out of the Bills? Like that's where I'm at with Baltimore. And I think if you wait on this line long enough, like you take this line all the way to Sunday morning, you're running a risk, but it could work out in your benefit. Again, this is a live line hunt game for me too. Another big game on Sunday. Teach. Hold on. Reporting eligible as the Lions coming off their bye week. They head to Dallas, another Tom Brady Cowboys broadcast. The Lions favored by 3, the over-under at 52. Here's the thing. First of all, we get to the Brady thing. I got a chance to listen to his whole call on the debauchery that happened at Levi's Stadium last week, and the Cardinals came in and punked the Niners. I don't have a problem with Tom Brady and the way he's calling football games, and he's new. And listen, if you've never been a broadcaster at any sport at any time, it's not an easy thing to do. That's why you won't hear us hammer broadcasters. It's not, and I get it. Oh, Joe Davis hates the Padres. Like, no, cool it. Calm down. Like, relax. I thought Brady was good, and he's only going to get better. And a guy who's got just football oozing out of his freaking brain, yes. I would like to see him call stuff other than the Cowboys games. I don't have the actual mark here, but I think this might be his fourth one. That being said, completely insignificant. Have you gotten a chance to listen to Brady at all this year?
I have not. In fact, I think I had the Cowboys game on a couple of weeks ago, and I had it muted. But we should, as fans, we want to hear this stuff. We want to hear Romo's thoughts. I think Romo has set the bar pretty high, and I didn't think he was that great at the beginning, but he's proven to be very, very good, very knowledgeable. Even with that little controversy in the last couple of seasons about him predicting plays. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. We do that in the pub. We sit there and go, oh, they should call this play, So we want, as fans, we want to hear that stuff because that stuff's important to us. And if you have somebody like Tom Brady talking and giving his insights, we do better to shut up and listen than to criticize.
Yeah, absolutely. See, you are jacked up for that London game. Is ready to go to the pub. Circle back to where we were. The Cowboys, who are they? You mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. The lack of the running game for the Cowboys is a great concern. Obviously, a lot of injuries, and they're getting a Lions team rested. And, oh, by the way, Jared Goff gets to play in a dome again. I think, honestly, my trust level in the Cowboys with their injuries at this point, I think this thing could get out of hand big time.
I think it could too. I've loved. It's amazing what happens when teams make a football trade and it benefits both teams. And I think that Stafford for Goff trade did exactly that. The Rams got their Super Bowl title. Goff got a change of scenery. He got to go play in Detroit. You bring in Dan Campbell. This is a whole new offense. It's a whole new team. He's building it from the ground up, and he has flourished. And I've loved every minute of it. I've loved watching Goff play football right now. I think this game does have the potential to get out of hand quickly, especially once again, if Dallas's running game is MIA, this thing is going to go right out the window. I don't know about you, though. That 52, I know it's a little high, but I'm kind of liking it a little bit, especially considering that it's indoors and you got
smoking the over on that game.
You got a couple you because this could go. Dallas's offense is so kind of like, here and there, but this is just the opportunity for Dallas to get right. This is a huge spot for Dallas this week.
Well, and the other advantage here for Dallas too. Dallas gets a week off after this. Then they go to San Francisco, which has been a little house of horrors for them over the last couple of years. They get a week off before they play the Niners. The Chiefs get a week off before they play the Niners. Not crying for the Niners. They get about a 10-day break after the Thursday night game last night before they play the Chiefs. But it's an interesting spot for Dallas because they are going to get a little healthier. And I would assume, if Micah Parsons is out again this week, I know it's still kind of, sort of, maybe that's going to be something to keep an eye on all the way up to kickoff time. But it's an interesting spot. If Dallas can get this, now you're talking about 3 wins in a row going into San Francisco. Then they go to Atlanta. Then obviously they've got the Eagles, the Texans on the horizon. Dallas is, I'm smoking the over, and I think Detroit, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks back. I think it might have been for the Monday night preview. I didn't. Monday night Mike did. The two-headed monster of Gibbs and Montgomery. And then obviously we know about Amon-Ra and Laporta and what Goff can do and his numbers inside as opposed to outside. But the development of Jameson Williams has taken this offense to a completely different level. And you want to talk about a guy, because there's trouble brewing in Cincinnati. We know that. I mean, if this keeps going the way it is in Cincinnati or in Cleveland, there's going to be coaching changes. If you're Joe Burrow and they are going to make a change in Cincinnati, Ben Johnson's the guy you want. That guy offensively. I mean, the development of Jameson Williams makes Detroit insanely scary for me. It's a level that's crazy to add to that.
Oh, 100%. And you add that to all the skill that they've already had, just like you said. Yes, this makes this Detroit team very scary. And someone not named Mike picked Detroit to go to the Super Bowl. I think that's correct. I know it's early. It's early.
Both of you guys did. I had to speak up for the rest of the people here. So I'm going to smoke the over on that game. I think Detroit wins and covers the spread. It's not because I don't believe in Dallas or I'm hating on Dallas. I don't like the spot for Dallas. Dallas has got to get healthy. And with no running game, that Detroit defense is going to pin their ears back and do what they're going to do. We already kind of talked about the Bucs and the Saints. Speaking of dumpster fires, we've got the Browns and the Eagles. The Eagles are 9-point favorites, and the over-under is 42.5. I don't know what to make about this thing, but when you've got 2 flaming dumpsters headed downhill right at each other, I don't trust the Eagles to cover 9. Obviously, no. Philly's a little bent, the quick exit from the Phillies. Now all the eyeballs are on Nick Sirianni, at least till the Sixers start. But this game, I don't want any part of. Interesting to see the Eagles as a 9-point favorite. I know they're at home, but you trust the Eagles with 9?
I don't trust the Eagles with 9. I don't trust many teams with 9. This you summed it up great. It's 2 dumpster fires. And who would have thought that we've been talking about these teams 4 games in is just not being able to get out of their own way? Like this. I don't understand the Eagles. I kind of understand the Browns. Like they just seem to just do Browns things and they end up in this position. And then once in a while they catch lightning in a bottle and all of a sudden they make the playoffs and win the game. But this Eagles team, I'm really confused by. Like, I just don't know I don't know what to expect.
There's just, some of the reports about what's going on in San Francisco, very similar situation, I think. I think there's something that stinks out loud in Philadelphia, and it's between Hurts and Sirianni. And until that gets kind of resolved, this team's going to meddle into the middle of nowhere. I think they should be able to beat the Browns at home this weekend because the Browns are just as big of a disaster. I'm not touching the spread. I'm not touching the over-under here. It's an interesting matchup of 2 teams that desperately need a win that I want no part of from a betting standpoint.
Yeah, this would be one that I would just in my pool, I would pick Philadelphia just to win, and then that would be that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So a couple more games. Obviously, a couple of these we're not going to touch on because they're not worth touching on. But boy, do we have a thing in Yuck on Monday night. No Robert Saleh, because that's going to fix the Jets offense. Robert Saleh being gone. I mean, we can say what you want about who was behind what move. Buffalo, the end of their mini gauntlet, 2.5-point favorites are the Bills on the road. New York's team traveling to play New Jersey's team. Over under at 41 here. I can see this game getting way crazy over, but this is going to be fascinating theater because who the hell knows what we're going to get out of the Jets.
Oh my gosh, this is so interesting to me. This is like getting ready to watch two trains collide and you want to see what happens after it's done. Like Jiminy Christmas. First off, I agree with you. Robert Saleh is completely at fault for this Jets debacle. I'm sure he is. Never mind the fact that it's your general manager who traded for Hassan Reddick, who is still embroiled in contracts. Like, what are you doing? What did you expect? What did you expect? The Jets continue to do Jet things, and I don't understand how you can assemble a team that has all of this talent for them to be. This team is 2-3, and it's like, what are you playing the same game that everybody else is? For reals. Breece Hall is a great running back. He showed it last year. You have a Hall of Fame guy at quarterback. You have great receivers. Like, you have a defense that you're wasting right now because your offense can't get it together. Like, what is going on? And then you're going to put the defensive coordinator in charge? I don't know, man.
I think what you're going to get here out of the Bills in this game is 1,000% lock focus. Obviously, they've lost the last two. We made a lot to do about their mini gauntlet, if you will. After this, they get the Titans. They do have a tough road trip across the country to play Seattle, but then they get the Dolphins again. They're at the Colts, and then they've got the Chiefs and Niners in there. Then they're at the Rams. So they get a little bit of a break in here. It looks like Keon Coleman and Josh Allen are starting to get that synergy together, which we knew was going to take some time. I think Buffalo is going to be 1,000% lock focus here, especially after what happened last year. Everybody forgets last year that the Jets still won that game on Monday Night Football because all we remember is what happened to Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. And Buffalo has been in this position. They know, I mean, Vegas Mac, I can hear him in my ear, even though he's not here. Who's going to win the division outside of Buffalo? I mean, he's not wrong right here. They're going to be very interested to see what the hell kind of Jets team shows up on Monday night.
Well, and, we talk about winning the division, and at this point, it seems like it is Buffalo's to lose, but they still have to put the wins together. I mean, you got a Miami team that's just nothing. It seems just lost without Tua. And you got a Jets team that's in complete turmoil right now. Buffalo needs to run the ball, though, this week because the Jet defense is pretty good, but against the rush, they're kind of middle of the road. So Buffalo needs to get that ball pounded up the middle a lot. I think Josh Allen needs to run as well. I need to see him get at least 50 yards in this game. If they can run the ball and get the Jets on their heels and get that defense on the field for a long time, I think they're in good shape. I've been very disappointed in Rodgers this year, and I know it's not all on him, but for a guy that they have basically waited 2 years to get, I mean, you're going to go out there with 2 wins in 5 games. Come on.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating theater there. Couple of words to finish up here, and we're excited. Can't wait to I'm going to have the heating pad going, the bio freeze, the multiple drinks in the cooler because my ass ain't leaving the damn couch all weekend long. That being said, let me just throw this out here because I kind of hinted on it earlier this week. Fan behavior at games is getting to the point where it's abhorrent. Like just disgusting. I hate going to games now. You and I have been we shared season tickets together right down the road when you were here. Like, I used to love going to games. I don't mind going now, but if I can't get a club seat and be able to control the environment that's around me, I don't want any part of it. You saw it the other night, Dodgers and Padres. I referenced it in the preview video for Dodgers-Padres Game 3. Like, if you can't handle an athlete taunting you, I don't care if you think it's right or wrong, you still don't get to be a dumbass and throw something at them. Like, that's part of sports. Villains, Yankees, Red Sox all the time, the idiots, the evil empire, the nonsense from Dodger Stadium the other night was ridiculous. The football fights, we see it every damn week. If you scroll on Twitter, you've got this idiot fighting this idiot over somebody smudging his Pumas or whatever the hell the reason. If you can't act in public with alcohol and you go to football games or baseball games to fight, you're a friggin' idiot and you don't belong there. learn how to friggin' act or stay home. That's all I got to say. Like, common damn sense, but apparently we still have to say it.
Look, on the back, I'm looking at a ticket stub right now, and on the back of it, it doesn't say your $100 ticket gives you the right to be an a-hole.
You have a ticket stub?
I do. Look, games are expensive now. Everything's expensive. Beers are expensive. You're going to go to a football game and get trashed and then act like a clown show, and then, oh, well, I'm Twitter famous because I acted like a Delta Bravo. Give me a break. I'm with you, dude. I don't go. I want to control that environment. And if that means I need to go and sit in the 300 levels with nobody around me in the private bathroom, I'm going to do it because it's better for me. This fan behavior is completely out of hand. And here's the other thing too, Mike. If you're a fan and you're giving it to a player like Jerks and Profar the other night, don't be bent when Jerks and Profar gives it right back to you.
Absolutely, dude. I'd have laughed. Like, all heated rivalries aside, I'd have laughed, dude. I'd have given him hella props for doing that. You can say whatever you want. I mean, Manny Machado fired a ball at David. Jesus, just stop, dude. I mean, if you can't handle yourself, why do we have to say it? Stay home. Just stay home. Like me and you are going to do all weekend. Any closing thoughts before something we've been waiting months and months for? It better not be a turd.
I don't think it's going to be a turd, man. I think it's definitely going to live up to expectations. I'm very excited to see if these I almost said it. I almost put it at the jar of dollar. If these Big Ten teams can improve on that record across time zones, I think that's a hugely underrated aspect of this new scheduling. I don't think enough people are paying attention to it. And I think from the betting standpoint, we need to look at trends like that to pad our wallets. But I'm very interested to see how Penn State does. I'm very interested to see how Ohio State does with that long travel.
Absolutely. Plenty of stuff to talk about next week. Hopefully Mac will be back with us. We're pretty sure he's going to. I'll be here. TJ will be here. Enjoy your football weekend. It starts tonight, everybody. For TJ, for Vegas, Mac, for the crew you don't get to see, I'm Mike. We're out.